Hey guys, we are going to put some crash protection on this KTM Super Adventure S. This is a few years old. It's a 2019. I picked this up about 6 months ago. It had about 3,000 miles on it, pretty much bone stock, didn't have any real aftermarket protection. I think this bike originally had crash bars on it. I don't know the full history on this, what happened to it. But just after I got it and really kind of started looking at the bike, it looked like crash bars had been installed on it at one point. So we're going to put some on this, but not today. That's going to be our next step. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to replace this stock engine guard that was down here, which was mounted up. Just these two bolts. I've already taken it off. We're going to replace that with this SW Motech, which, it's funny, this thing weighs, gosh, I don't know what the weight was. I thought it said something like 9 pounds. Pretty good quality from what I can tell, and I've already done a few things on this to prep this, like putting in these O-ring type areas that go into these 6 different holes here, as well as these flange inserts, which is where the bolts are obviously going to come up through. We're going to try and put this on here and give it a little bit more protection down underneath. I've got some trips coming up. One of the big ones is going up to Alaska later this year, and we're going to be doing roads like the Dempster Highway. And I think having this extra protection is going to be beneficial just in the event we do have any unexpected falls or run into more rough terrain than we had anticipated. So yeah, let's get this going, and we'll get this installed, and shouldn't be that difficult. It looks pretty straightforward. This looks pretty nice. I'm excited to get this on. You'll notice that I've laid this out. SW Motech, they always have some interesting directions printed up in multiple languages and numbers galore. So the way I've approached this is separate all the parts out, just number everything before I even start to get into this, so that I know what is what. A lot of nuts and bolts, and it can look a little overwhelming, complicated, but I think it's a good way to approach a project like this just before you start just diving right in and starting to remove parts and add parts. All right. 6 of those rubber grommets in. The 3 in the back are harder. And after 6, I have no suggestions on how to get those in any easier than what I just did. They're kind of a finagle with them, I guess. These don't fit in super tight, but... So we got 6 of these flangers that go inside. And that is that. So we've got that installed. The next thing I started working on was putting in this first crossbar, which you can see is right underneath here. On this bike, there's an open hole on this side. And I don't know, like I said, I think the people before may have had a crash bar set up on this and took it off, and that hole was open. On this side, you'll notice that it is where the original bolt goes for the whole kickstand module itself. Pretty much removing this and inserting the bolt that comes with this kit, along with a spacer there that kind of allows you to bring this out. So this has been installed. It hasn't been tightened down. I'm going to end up having to pull these back out and Loctite them anyway. But once we get the front bar, there's a front bar that goes across here. Once we get that, then we'll line this up in the exact spot to where the engine guard will mount up there and bolt into the bottom of this, as well as the bottom of the front bar itself. One of the other things you'll notice here, and it's kind of worked out, is I have the gear shift currently off, which mounts right there. And I have a aftermarket one that I was going to put in. As I mentioned, I was looking at just items that in the event of a fall, if we're up on this Alaska trip ride that we're planning to do, if the bike went down, what are those kind of components that potentially could break off or potentially get damaged? The good old gear shift mechanism is one of those. So I was really looking for just a replacement one that I was just going to put in my toolkit to take with me. But then I saw this one by, I think it's Moose Racing. Pretty nice, and has a fold-up feature. In the event you do tip over, that it may not snap off and hopefully just fold up. But either way, and this one looks nicer with the orange anodized here, I'm going to install this one, pop the original OEM in my toolkit and take it with me just in the event that I got into an accident of any sort and the arm snapped or this got damaged in any way. I could still pop on the other one on this trip as we go up to Alaska. So this was another one of the key areas I wanted to replace, along with some other things that we'll add to this bike as time goes on. But it kind of worked out because taking this off, which normally it mounts right up in here, gave me a little bit easier access to get into this bolt for the bracket, the back bracket part of this engine guard, and get this the original one removed, as well as installing this without this being in the way. So that kind of worked out. So we'll install this back up onto the bike here. Nothing too difficult there. Just a bolt, a couple different washers here, and we'll torque that to the right setting, and then we'll start working on the front part of this engine guard. So we've got the front bar kind of all set up as far as the bolts that we need for both sides. It's just a matter of taking off the existing bolts on some of the lower fairings here. So we're gonna have to take off the bolt for this, which is the lower part of the gas tank fairing here. Remove these bolts, and we'll use those others to go in place to them. And it's the same on both sides. So we've got the front support bar here installed. And again, this is just the same on the other side. 2 bolts, 1 bolt here and the other, one on the other side, just for this bottom fairing piece that covers the gas tank. Those need to be pulled out, and then the proper spacers and bolts put in. And then once you do that, it's pretty straightforward. Just mount up the front. And I guess the only thing to really kind of keep in mind is to make sure you just kind of keep everything, these bars, loose so that you can line this up accordingly. And I just put those flangers back in. So we're gonna drop this down here a little bit and line it up with this bar, and just put these last 3 bolts up through here and just kind of snug it down and get it in the right position. And then I think when I'm gonna go back down through and just do 1 bolt at a time here, which on each one of these, because these 2 and the 2 on the other side need to have Loctite on them and properly torqued down to, I think it was like 48 Newton meters, something like that. And make sure you check what's in the instructions. But really straightforward installation here of this, and I think it's going to look pretty good once it's all done. I was wrong when I said earlier it was 48 Newton meters torque on these 4, 2 on each side, these 4 bolts. And it's actually 45 Newton meters, but it's in the directions. So those 4 are all torqued. Now, they don't say put Loctite on any of these 6, these 3 down here and the 3, put the camera back here, maybe you can see it better, these 3 up front and these 3, but I'm one to Loctite everything. These things vibrate like nothing else, and especially if you're taking these things off-road and getting into some really bumpy stuff, then it's just even more vibrations. So I'm going to take each one of these out and put a little dab on each one, screw it back in, just hand tighten it down, and should be good to go. All right, everything is buttoned up. That is installed. Looks pretty good. A lot better protection than what was there before. Before, literally, was just covering this front part, nothing below back there. Pretty easy install. It's one of these things, you take your time. New Moose Racing gear shifter also put on there, which looks pretty nice. And yeah, just take your time. Don't tighten all the major bolts. That makes at least the 4, 2 on this side, 2 on the other side for the engine guard, until you've got it all lined up with the front bracket and the rear bracket. And once you do that, then you can go back through and Loctite them and Loctite everything else once it's all kind of lined up. But yeah, pretty easy install overall. I put a couple links in the description for this, for the SW Motech. What I realized, I purchased this from these guys on their website, and later realized it was sold on Amazon for a little bit less, about $30 less. So I put a link to that in the product description, and I'll put a link to this Moose Racing shifter if you're interested in picking up one of those for your bike. All right, that's it.